The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
You're listening to the Alldus podcast ServiceNow series. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Matthew Smenos. Matthew is the Principal Program Manager for the Global Veterans Skillbridge program at ServiceNow. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Appreciate it.
So Matt, lots to cover, but as we do with all our guests, let's start with yourself. Could you give us a little bit of an overview of your background in technology and what your journey has been from where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way? What's got you to where you are today, leading the Veterans Skillbridge program for ServiceNow?
I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois. I was raised just outside the city. I went to Catholic school as a kid. The only reason I mention that is because a lot of my life has been sort of a journey of a core value of mine has been service. And so I think I got a lot of that kind of as a child going through Catholic school. Went to high school. I was a pretty engaged athlete. I did swimming and basketball. I really enjoyed like writing and communications and public speaking. I would go out for drama things, although I don't think I ever got cast in anything. I did like poetry slams and stuff like that, but I was always interested in writing, communicating. I enjoy speaking with people. A lot of people told me early on that I had a lot of great presence as a teacher, possibly. My mother's a teacher too, so that kind of made sense for me. I went to college and I studied mass communications technology. I wanted to get the Bachelor of Science instead of just a Bachelor of Arts. So I studied, but this is in the 90s. It was just before the big internet blow up that really kind of happened in the early 21st century. So a lot of those skills were more philosophical. It was like the growth of a person's understanding of like mass communications. I wrote for my college newspaper, studied areas like sports and entertainment, but some politics as well. And then while I was in school, I joined Air Force ROTC and started doing that. That was a couple-year program, and this was kind of like my first blush of the military. I only had one particular notable veteran in my family, which was my maternal grandfather in World War II, but there hadn't been a lot of military, so I was a little bit of a black sheep in this way. There weren't a lot of military in my family, but I had a lot of friends, made, a whole bunch of lifelong friends in ROTC. Excellent way to begin sort of my networking journey and meeting people and getting to know people and what they do and where they are. Served my first tour of duty. I commissioned in 1999 as an officer, served for about, all in told, about 8.5 years, plus a little bit more in the reserves, but active duty about 8.5 years. My first job was at F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Cheyenne, Wyoming, where I was a missileer and worked with the nuclear arsenal, ICBMs and stuff like that. Within that job, I had like a great opportunity to learn instructional design, how to design training, how to design lesson plans, how to teach younger missileers. One of the jobs of a missileer in that program is to be a permanent mentor. You have a two-man crew where there's a commander and a deputy, and the commander's job is to bring his deputy up until the deputy's ready to become a commander and then carry it on. So there's been this kind of, I only mention all this because it's very much a pattern of kind of how I've learned to teach and I've learned to mentor. Obviously, my time in service was huge for me. I often say that all the best things about my life come from the time I spent in the U.S. Air Force. I served another tour out west at Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is just north of Santa Barbara, California, where I did a lot of space lift, where we would like lift satellites into space or test rocket systems, things like that. I actually received some formal instructor. They call it the BIC program, the Basic Instructor Course, and the AIC, the Advanced Instructor Course, and those were really great means to become better at in instructional design, which is fundamentally kind of how I've moved through my career. As the I served 2 tours in Afghanistan, deployed out of Vandenberg. And both times I was an embedded trainer where you would train like Afghan soldiers, Afghan police, Afghan officers. We would teach them on basic military theater stuff, doctrine in theater and stuff like that. That was excellent. And then I got out when I got home from my deployment. I was offered an early reduction in force bonus to get out. My family and I moved to Utah, where I started working in engineering firms. When I was in Utah, I was working for a company called L3 Communications. They had an opportunity for me to work with a bunch of consultants from a company called Deloitte, really famous. Everybody's probably heard of Deloitte. And they were implementing SAP. This is back around like 2012, 2011. And I got made a team lead to develop all the training to train new people on the ERP. And while I was working with them, working with Deloitte, the Deloitte consultants to develop this training, I learned even more advanced methodologies for working in sort of enterprise or cloud-based, software as a service, SaaS, kind of products for the first time. I did that for several years. And then when I was finishing implementing SAP, I was invited by the consultants to come apply for a consulting position at a small consulting firm. I worked with that firm for several years, and I got to be on kind of what I call both sides of the table. So at one time I had been the person receiving the software and having to provide requirements and understand how the software works. And then as a consultant, I got to be the other side of the table where I was implementing the program, receiving those requirements, meeting those needs, and then helping those companies stand up their ERP. While I was in that role, I got to work with Salesforce.com. I got certifications through their Trailhead. I got to work with Workday, Cornerstone On Demand. Mm-hmm. I was then offered a position to go back to L3 as a director of training for their shared services department, where I got to kind of finish what I started with the SAP implementation and upgrade that. And that was a great opportunity. Also, it was my first time to kind of manage a large-scale program. After that, then it was right around 2020 that all this was kind of capping off, and COVID hit, and there were a number of changes that occurred in my life, not the least of which being that I was suddenly unemployed for the first time in a long time, pretty much ever in my adult life. But I had a lot of great contacts, again, through the networking I'd done in the Air Force, the networking I'd done as a consultant, and this great individual named John P. Wirch, he runs JPW Consulting. He offered me a position to work with Salesforce.com, which was a platform I was comfortable with, and help to set up contact tracing software all across Texas to help with the COVID pandemic. So again, I felt like an urge to do this, not only because it was a good lucrative job for me to have while I was unemployed, but also it was another way to be of service. And so I was able to really help during that pandemic. I felt like it was a chance to serve my country. At the end of that, as that closed out in kind of that fall of 2020, an old contact of mine who I'd met through my first job out of the Air Force said, "Hey, I'm now a manager of this company called ServiceNow. I've been following your resume. You look great. Would you like to come develop content for us?" So I came to ServiceNow for the first few years. I worked with developing project management tools, training for security operations, DevOps, things like that. And then very recently, probably about 5 months ago, somewhere back around April timeframe, I was offered this role. They needed a program manager, and it seemed like everything about my career had very much prepared me for being in this role. And I jumped at the chance because not only was it managing a large-scale program, working with a tech platform, instructional design, but also I got to be of service again, and I got to serve the people that I'd once served with, and I got to say that really did it for me. So anyway, that kind of brings me up to speed. Hopefully that wasn't too long.
No, that was good, Matt. Thank you. I appreciate the detail, and we were talking off air about the importance of hearing from our guests and their non-traditional path to a position of leadership, and yours is certainly one of those. But it's full circle, and it all feeds nicely into the role that you have now. So let's just start there. Talk to us about the role and its responsibilities and the mission of your department. What are you guys tasked with, and what does that look like day to day?
Well, I'm part of a large group called the RiseUp program. I actually helped stand up the first set of RiseUp career paths, is what we call them at ServiceNow. I and a colleague of mine, we wrote the technical program or project manager, TPM, the technical project manager career path, which we then now offer through our other RiseUp programs. There are a number of, the RiseUp program in general, I should just say, is a partnership program where people come to us and we put them into a career path, like a learning journey. And very much like Salesforce has a trailhead, that kind of thing. However, I also feel like this is more comprehensive. Obviously, I'm biased, but I worked in Trailhead for years, and I understand. But in this one, we really give them a lot of hands-on exposure and hands-on project work to do. And of all these career path opportunities we offer, we have one in particular, which is the ServiceNow Veterans Program, which is the program I particularly manage. Although there are programs for non-veterans as well. I want to just say that in case people are interested. But the Rise Up with ServiceNow Veterans Program works in partnership with the U.S. Department of Defense. They have a SkillBridge policy or SkillBridge charter. The SkillBridge concept being something that came out of the Veterans Jobs Act, which is a couple decades ago. But the SkillBridge program ultimately grew up out of that, which is the idea that we wanted to help veterans who many of us in my role and with my sort of point of view, believe that vets do very high-end work at even at very young ages. I've met 19-year-olds when I was in the service who are in charge of like tens of millions of dollars worth of equipment, munitions. They had to keep incredibly accurate records. They were responsible for high levels of stewardship and accountability and chains of custody. These are people that had to sign forms that if there was some mistake could send them to prison in Leavenworth. This is like a 19-year-old young man or woman from some town in America who hasn't necessarily been to college or any formal training, but the military alone has trained them and put them in these positions of great responsibility. So I'm a big believer in the work potential of veterans. The hard part is it's not the days that it used to be where you can just play the veterans card, so to speak, and just get a job, like kind of after World War II or even after Vietnam. I think there was an idea that, well, we want to help out our vets and get them working. I find that just seems to have, I don't really know why. I have some theories, but I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole. But I think a lot of that has faded away or become more bland in that being a veteran alone no longer puts you at the front of the line.
Yep.
However, I still believe the DNA of what goes into training military personnel, not just in the U.S. too. We also have a partnership, our Invictus program in the U.K., and we're standing up a cohort in India, and we're looking at standing up in some of the other continents like Asia and Africa as well. But I'm just saying I really believe this about veterans in general, that there is a level of discipline, and we're dealing with less than 1%, at least in America, less than 1% of the population. So these are really rare individuals, and it's in their DNA to be successful, but they needed something more. So when we stand up a SkillBridge program, what we want to do is we want to provide opportunities for transitioning service members, including like veterans, active duty at the time, people that are just about to leave active duty, veterans, their spouses and dependents, including, adult age children. We want to help them enter a career in technology. And I mean, the kind of way that I got my opportunity to start working with SAP and Salesforce by all the very fortunate opportunities I was given, we want to continue that kind of thing. So we really break down a lot of the traditional barriers, at least that's our goal, for entry into the ServiceNow ecosystem, as we call it, which is not just ServiceNow, the company, but all of our partners. Alldus, you guys are part of our ecosystem as well. And we want to empower them with this, what we call the skills of tomorrow.
Yeah. I
know that might sound a little, a little lofty, but really we offer some pretty cutting edge stuff around AI, advanced skills with working with prompting, the ability to implement AI tools that help empower companies do more work better, faster. Yeah. And whether you have any prior technical experience or not, it's our promise, our charter is that we will train you on the ServiceNow platform at no cost to you. Our AMS veterans programs are they're pretty intensive. It's about, it's a 16-week program, and that is largely mandated by the DoD SkillBridge charter that wants it to fit into the final 180 days or roughly the last 6 months of a person's time in service. But if you're a veteran or a spouse, you don't need to worry about that, about being in alignment with the active duty requirements. However, what we're really looking at is about 40 hours a week for about 16 weeks, like a full-time job. We do them in what we call cohorts. A cohort is just a word for a class, a large class. and it's all virtual based training that and we have a new cohort that starts every quarter. I am actually in the process of trying to scale that up. I'd like to get to a place where we have 2 cohorts running every quarter, but we got to work with what we have right now in terms of our resources and our opportunities. But we are watching the level of interest in our program, and our engagement with the veterans community is just spiking right now. We're at an all-time high in terms of applications that are coming in. So what we do is we want to help them not only gain all these skills, but then be put on the path to meaningful employment. And it's important that I say this, and this might sound like a little bit of maybe a little too like a caveat, but we're not guaranteeing that anybody find a job, although we do more than most career programs in helping that you find one, in that we prep you on real actual program work or project work using the ServiceNow platform that you would do out there in the world for any major company or any company that we work with. And we have a lot of partners, a lot of agencies. We actually have a Job Connect, a job board that we put people to, and we try and match them with positions. We also do interview skills training. We help them build a professional level modern resume. We help them build a LinkedIn profile and build a large network. We do all these things well within that 16-week program. And while we can't necessarily always guarantee everybody will wind up in that ServiceNow job, we measure our success by how many participants we place into meaningful employment, as well as we also we also measure it by how many formal mainline certifications. Under normal circumstances, a mainline ServiceNow certification costs a lot of money. It's pretty expensive for most people just to get a voucher for one shot at the test. When you go through the ServiceNow Skillbridge program, you will get free vouchers for a number of our major, including the big one, which is our Certified Systems Administrator, or our CSA. You will get a free voucher to take that, as well as a full-scale set of training and help from TAs and certified instructors. Yeah. So, it's an unpaid program, but it combines ServiceNow certified training with, as I mentioned earlier, hands-on exercise and career skills training. So working on real projects that are suggested by some of our partners, real people that work for all the agencies and the companies we might do business with, who are like, what would be great is if we could develop an application that could do this, or if we could add some AI power to this. And we take those user stories, those ideas, and we work in final project groups to actually do a proof of concept, those kind of things. And then when we graduate, we invite interested parties to come watch the graduation and to come see what our people are capable of. And then again, if those people want to then post jobs to our job board, we can literally align them. So it's not unlike at the end of a season of sports, when you have scouts from colleges or professional teams come to look at the last game that players are playing. We do something very similar with that. Yeah. At the very least, at the end, you're going to walk away, even if you don't find your job that minute, you're going to walk away with significant career professional development, including, again, resume, LinkedIn, that kind of thing, interview skills, on top of a huge pile of ServiceNow training and certifications that you have developed and earned yourself, that if your name, nobody can ever take that away from you. And as well as an enormous network of people who work within the ServiceNow ecosystem. So it's probably
I think it's fair and reasonable to say that anyone who enters the Skillsbridge program and comes out the other side of it, if they want a job in ServiceNow and are willing to work at it, they will get one eventually. Because the demand is outpacing the supply year after year, which is why a program like Skillsbridge is so successful. And I know you've got countless stories of success stories, people who have entered the Skillsbridge program and have accelerated their career. But I do want to just focus on one or two so the listeners can really understand how this works in practice. I myself, as one of the partners working with individuals, we have a huge customer base within the public sector as well as private sector. I know firsthand that there is a constant demand for veterans with ServiceNow, because they're able to combine the ServiceNow knowledge from Skillsbridge and then their understanding of intergovernment workings, whether it be the particular area of veterans that they've served in. So there's huge demand, tremendous opportunity, and it's working. So I'd love for you to just tell one or two of the stories which would sort of encapsulate this journey in practice.
So we have a bomb technician, Josh Hamilton. He served in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria as an EOD technician. Really high-end work for a young person. He had a desire for a civilian career, obviously, because he wanted to balance his career with his family time a little bit more. And he had this quote that he put up on LinkedIn: "There's almost nothing in life you can't accomplish if you just keep throwing yourself at it." And I think that's a great attitude for somebody who's starting something brand new that they have no basis or background in. And Josh is a real success story of how that works. Josh learned about our SkillBridge program from a fellow veteran, and it proved crucial for him because he was accepted into the program that was tailored for transitioning service members, obviously our SkillBridge program. His initial perception of ServiceNow was that he knew very little about it, or IT, information and technology at all. And again, he had some basic limited troubleshooting skills, but he quickly recognized that the platform could really offer a fulfilling, rewarding career for him that really aligned with his professional ambitions, because he believed that it was something he could really learn, even though he had no background in IT. So he really committed to training. He's one of our real examples of success in terms of committed success. His competitive nature, as he describes it, kicked in, driving to excel. But the real story here is that he worked hard. He studied hard throughout the 40-hour-a-week, 16-week program. And probably the most important thing is how many certifications. He got his application specialist, his application developer, his implementation specialist, his system administrator, and ultimately the coveted systems architect certification. He got all of those free of cost to him. Didn't cost him a penny. This is probably over, maybe close to $2,000 worth of just certifications, not counting the cost it would take to take the training. Yeah. But he did all that, and he set an unprecedented number. He set a record for the number of certifications that he picked up, and he was kind of famous for that. He also was very good at his networking piece, which we helped him by helping him develop his LinkedIn profile and his resume. And he was able to land a group with GlideFast Consulting, land a role with a group called GlideFast Consulting as a ServiceNow cloud engineer. And his certifications were exactly what they were looking for, and they set him up for success. So what I really love about the story is, in the end, not only does he have this role that he's really enjoyed at GlideFast, working from this program that we helped him pass through with all these incredibly high-end professional certifications that'll probably secure his at least his success for the foreseeable future, because, as you said, the demand for ServiceNow is so high. But what I'm really proud of is, in the end, he was indeed able to meet his number one goal, which is balancing his work life. And he and his wife and his children are, they are living the dream. And he was able to do that in large part, transition from role as an EOD tech with a very low-level set of technical IT skills to a pretty advanced ServiceNow systems architect, and we did that for him. So he would like to advance his career by becoming what's called a solutions architect, and he's continuing to build on his skills, which is something we make easy at ServiceNow. Once you're part of the ecosystem, there's a lot of access to future training. We have what we call Delta exams that help keep your certifications fresh. And as well as an ever-expanding network of professionals who do different things, including stuff like agentic AI and virtual agents, and a lot of AI-powered success tools that we offer at ServiceNow. And he's firmly a part of our ecosystem now, and I'm just personally so proud of him.
I love that. I'm one of many. You and I both know that every cohort there are stories like this that we could share. And Josh is just a great example as somebody who is ambitious for continuous learning. And the great thing about ServiceNow is there will be new certs available all the time, because the platform is advancing at breakneck speed to meet the demand of the broader community with AI adoption. So you'll never be bored. But if you're not a Josh, if you want to just find a section and own it, there's a whole layer. You can go deep into one particular vertical, and if speaking to veterans, you can just focus on your industry. There is so much demand for defense, federal, public sector, state and local government, that combining your background as a veteran with ServiceNow will give you a bolstered career where we can see the roadmap for many years to come. And I think sharing Josh's story is important, but this conversation is for the next wave of veterans. And what I would ask for this one in particular, we publish all our podcasts across all platforms, and I know once we sign this one off, Matt, we'll get it out to the community. Let's get all the previous cohorts, let's get all the alumni to share with veterans, because if one more veteran hears about this, here's Josh's story, it will be one more person who might make the decision that Josh did. And we know the other side of the training is a great career, great fulfilling career.
Indeed.
Final question to you then, Matt. Looking at the roadmap ahead, we go to these events, we go to Knowledge, we hear about all the exciting developments. In your world, focusing on SkillsBridge for veterans, when you look at the next 1 to 2 years, what are you most excited about?
People are probably almost getting tired of hearing about it, but it never ceases to fascinate me, the growth and capacity of what can be done with our artificial intelligence tools. So our AI, our Gen AI, and our Now Assist tools that we use in ServiceNow are now growing into so many different areas that we've begun to incorporate larger swaths of those learning modules into our SkillBridge curriculum. So as we move from 2025 to 2026, there's going to be a growth in the curriculum where we're still going to cover the same basic concept of project management, business process analysis, information tech, IT, service management, the implementation skills, app development, but we're also going to add the AI functions that then further empower all of those areas. That's a big area, as well as our real goal is to just broaden this thing out. You're absolutely right, John, that the job market, not only public and private, for people with ServiceNow certification, ServiceNow skills has never been bigger. In fact, it's growing all the time. And this is one of the best programs, I believe the best program available right now for moving into a really cutting edge. We consider ourselves to be the control tower of AI, is what you'll hear Bill McDermott talk about sometime. We are leading the charge as far as business, artificial intelligence solutions. And we want to provide a bridge for people who already have that great DNA. Because again, I'm not trying to just promote just veterans. I'm promoting trained ServiceNow professionals. And if you peel back the layers of the onion on the DNA that makes them who they are, you will find that a lot of the foundational stuff is from their term of service and their dedication to service as veterans. But we're building onto that, building this structure where they'll have some of those cutting edge software skills that'll just make them of value to any company that gets them. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, we are trying to scale up and double the number of seats that we offer as we move forward. That is our goal.
Matt, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I was looking forward to this one for a while now because I know how important the SkillsBridge program is, and in particular for veterans. And, Josh, one success story of many, but the big success is your team, your department, and what you're doing. So we wish you and everyone there the very best of luck and continued success. Look forward to having you back on the show again in the near future.
All right. Well, thank you. And looking forward to talking to you again, John. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.